Welcome back. In this lecture, I want to do a quick comparison between these app design programs. First, the conclusion. Figma seems to be the industry standard and the best design program for the future. With that in mind, you can skip to the next lecture if you're not interested in all the details. Okay, assuming you're still here, I look at the market, at the design market, and I see four big columns. It's Photoshop, Adobe XD, Sketch, and Figma. First, let's talk about Sketch. It's a decent app design program that's fairly well known. It costs $9 per month, but I'm not interested in it for one simple reason. It's not available on Windows, so I can't use it. From what I understand, the team behind it doesn't plan on ever making it work on Windows, so for that reason, it's out of the question for me. More than that, it doesn't have a large community. So with that in mind, Sketch is losing ground quite fast. It's been around for a lot of years, but it's losing ground. Now let's talk about Photoshop versus Adobe XD. Now that's like comparing apples to trees. They are totally different programs that have different purposes. Adobe XD was built from the ground up for web design projects, app design projects as well. So that's one of the major advantages for Adobe XD. It works with vectors, it's very lightweight, it's super fast, and it has awesome features that can seriously speed up your design process. Just have a look at this example where I can populate a list in just a few clicks. That really makes you work faster and smarter. It's not just a gimmick. I use it all of the time in all of my projects. Speed is the key word here. Now, the downside is that Adobe XD is still under heavy development. Adobe is constantly working on it and it's getting better and better, but some people say the updates aren't coming fast enough. Basic things like a dark interface, or being able to change your layout, for example, those are not available. Well, not at the time of this recording anyway. Another downside, previously Adobe XD was a free program, now it's $10 per month. So overall, there's a sense of frustration about Adobe XD, especially when you compare it to Figma. Now, more on that in a second. For now, let's talk about Photoshop. Photoshop is great. It has tons of features, it's predictable, it's comfortable, and you can design beautiful apps with it. It's one of the most well-known design programs in the world. Now, I could go on and on about it, on its positive sides, but here's the elephant in the room. The single biggest problem with Photoshop for app design work is performance. When working on a medium to large project, Photoshop slows down dramatically. In most app design projects, even with the absolute best computer, I still have trouble moving around. It's choppy, unresponsive, and it's quite annoying. And this is a $7,000 machine. It's not the best in the world, but still it's $7,000. Now, when I try to add a new text layer, Photoshop is stuttering. It's slow as hell. It stops and it thinks for a few seconds for adding a simple text layer. This is frustrating and it's by far the biggest drawback. There are other ones as well, but this is the thing that really affects me every single day. And it's simple. Photoshop wasn't built for this type of thing. If the project has only a few screens in total, that's totally fine. You can use Photoshop fine. But after 10 or 20 screens, it just becomes way too slow. So to sum this up, between Adobe XD and Photoshop, there is no contest for any decent app design project. One is incredibly fast, while the other one is the giant of the design world, but it's also painfully slow. Jet ski, Adobe XD versus cruise ship. Now, back to Figma. It was started in 2012, and in 2018 or so, it really started catching speed. The next few years, it spread incredibly fast in the design community. So much so that Adobe, the huge company behind programs like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and of course Adobe XD, decided to buy Figma for $20 billion. Yes, billion. So that happened at the end of 2022. And it took everyone by surprise. The sum is incredible, but here's why you should care about it. So Adobe XD was a direct competitor to Figma. For the beginner, they might even look similar. Adobe XD was built for web and app design projects, exactly like Figma. But one clear advantage that Figma had was its pricing. It was totally free. Adobe XD started out free, but then they made it $10 per month. And that may not sound like a lot, but most companies hate setting up a new billing system. If their designers could just sign up fast without any trouble, that would be the ideal case. So Figma was a great choice for most companies. And designers of all sorts liked working in Figma. And not because it was free, but also because it worked in your browser. Yeah, a complete design program that works in your browser. So all in all, Figma became the design program that everybody was asking for. Adobe tried to improve Adobe XD, but overall Figma seemed unstoppable, so I think that's why they decided to buy it for such a large amount. They had to do something. Figma was getting stronger and stronger, and buying them was the easiest solution. Now, the main question after Figma was bought by Adobe was, is it gonna remain free? And the answer is yes. But the most important question is this: what's Adobe gonna do? Both XD and Figma do the exact same thing. It doesn't make any sense to keep both design programs. It's just too expensive. So most people think that Adobe is gonna straight up kill Figma since it was once a competitor. But my guess is that Adobe XD is much more likely gonna be terminated. Time is gonna tell us. But for now, it's best that you learn Figma and see why loads of designers started using it and they never switched back to Adobe XD or any other design program. Before we end, I'd like to mention something. Adobe is very likely gonna update Figma several times. This means you might see slight interface changes here and there. But the great thing about this course is that the principles, the design principles that we cover are universal. So even if you see a slight interface change, don't worry, you can still follow along without any problems. And if you do get stuck, please just ask for help and I'm gonna be there to jump in. For now, let's continue and I'm gonna see you in a second. Thank you.